Welcome to the Valley of Outlaws podcast, a podcast for those looking to take the road less trodden, and a podcast for those seeking more. Claire, you are Outlaw number 26. I give these titles out to my guests, hoping that it might stick and they could take it on into their life further on if they want to. We never know if this podcast gets big. They might be able to say, I remember being Outlaw 26.
Yes.
You are Outlaw 26 today, and someone who I'm very excited to speak to, having come across your profile on social media and seeing the work you do. I'm extremely interested to talk and just understand who you are and why you do what you do. So I'll ask you my first question, which is the same that I ask all my guests, which is, in your own words, tell me, who are you, what do you do, and why do you do what you do?
Okay, so, I'm Claire Paris, and I'm a biological oceanographer, a professor of ocean science at the University of Miami. I am a freediver, an athlete, and a scientific freediver. And more than anything, I am a mother and a grandmother. I have two granddaughters, and I really love the ocean. So I do what I do because I think it's my attraction and love for the ocean that has
Fantastic.
been, like in my life.
Yeah. And so what was it that first drew you to the ocean? Have you always grown up by the ocean, or is it something which you had to move to the ocean, to the sea to really love it?
I was born in the south of France, near the Mediterranean. So I think as far as I remember, I've seen the ocean with my grandparents, walking in the tidal pools. And but then I lived my first 10 years of life landlocked in northern France. And But then when I was a teenager, we moved to Bordeaux on the Atlantic coast, and I also went in West Africa part time when I was a teenager to lived in a fisherman village. So I think I was always close to the ocean, and that's why I am who I am.
No, lovely. And when you were younger, um, what did you think you were going to be when you grew up? And how different was that dream to how it's turned out to be?
It is pretty much what I dreamed of.
Really? Wow.
Yes.
Fantastic. I think
Yes.
you're the first guest who's told me that.
Yeah, because I think because when I went to West Africa, I was 13, and I was always like interested by nature and animals, and I like to be outdoors. Um, but when I was in West Africa, I spent a lot of time in the ocean in those canoes. Even though I was a little girl and girls would not go fishing, I would ask them, "Can I go with you?" And they said, "Of course." And I spent a lot of time at sea, and even in my own age, I saw that there was some problem with foreign fishing and large boats, industrial boats offshore. And I always told them, I'll do something about it.
Oh, wow. Wow. From
And
such a young
then,
age. Wow.
yeah. And then when I was 17, I read a book. I was in high school and I read a book, my last year of high school. I read a book. It was called Le Nouvel Homme et la Mer, The New Man and the Sea. And it was written by the director of the CNEXO, which is like the Center for the Exploration of the Ocean in France. And I realized there was a lot of fields that you can go to with, studying the ocean. And I say, this is what I want.
Fantastic.
And
And
I
was
don't think I've done anything else in my life. That's all I've done.
did you have any other passions when you were younger? Anything else at all? Or was it just everything was linked to the sea?
No, actually, at some point I thought about being a veterinarian
Ah, okay.
because I love
Okay.
animals.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, it was because to be a veterinarian is like a school of engineer, and I like the math also, and I like the science relate to it. But then when I read that book, I said, no, I always want to do something about the ocean, so I'm gonna try to do that.
Mm. And where did you study to become like a marine scientist?
So it took some time
Okay.
to become that, because in my hometown in Bordeaux there was the time there was no marine science at the university, so I became like I did a master in biochemistry. But while I was doing that, I went back to Africa. I did an internship in looking at large pelagics, and I actually wrote a paper in ICAT when I was 21. It was ICAT is the International Commission for the Conservation of Atlantic Tuna, looking at the biology of the sailfish, the Atlantic sailfish,
Yes.
and so with that, it I was invited to go to the US for my PhD.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So it wasn't till your PhD that you then really narrowly focused down on it as a kind of a study then?
Yes.
Wow. And so how did you like was it a constant learning in your own time as well to understand marine biology? Did you do a lot of stuff out in your free time outside university to really try and learn and grow and understand it more?
Um, just I don't think I was much into like the academia, and I never thought I would become a professor to begin with. I just want to do research about the ocean and explore more. I'm like an explorator and learn about the ocean to be able to protect it. But so that's been like the path. But so what I was doing in my free time was like the regular thing young people do, like surfing. If you were, in Bordeaux, you have big waves next to you, so you go surfing, you go sailing. So when you're in the ocean, you never have like like a downtime. It's always doing sport in the ocean, and but I was very focused on in my studies. I when I was at the university, I I was very serious about learning, and um, as a matter of fact, even in biochemistry, I had the choice to. The book was called the Leninger book. It's a Bible of biochemistry, and you could take the course in English or in French, and the book in English or in French, and I took it in English because I love to challenge myself. I don't know why. Always been like not a very good kid. Like I always do challenge myself and accidents,
That's brilliant.
but also challenge myself intellectually as well.
Hmm. Of course. And so then
Mm.
you said you didn't want to ever you didn't think you were ever going to be a professor. So what point did that change, and what did you maybe learn for your studies and stuff that realized you wanted to teach people more about it and educate more people?
Yeah. Interestingly enough, I was not thinking about that I want to teach people. What I want to do is do something to protect the ocean. So early on, I was more into fisheries. When I started my PhD, I was in fishery biology, which is, it was in the early 80s, um, literally in the early 80s. And so there was only men there, only men.
Oh
And it
wow.
was difficult for women to have a voice. And I spent a, a lot of time, and, long story short, I was not able to do my PhD when I started it, or finish it, because I had my first child, and I was taken out of the PhD because
Wow.
because I thought a woman cannot have a family and be
Wow.
a professor, right?
Wow.
And the reason why I want to do a PhD because it was challenging and I wanted to do more research. And so when I was taken out of the program, I just became a technician, right? So I was working at no other national organization for ocean research administration. Um, and I was going on to research cruises in large research vessel, working with plankton, collecting physical data, analyzing them. At the time, I even wrote a couple of papers in the late 80s, early 90s, and at some point, I felt like I was excluded of lead authorship. I was excluded of making decision because I was just a technician. So I say, okay, that's enough. I wanted to continue with the idea of having a PhD because I have a better voice, and that's why I actually it was by chance that after I wrote the second paper, I was invited in New York to do some research in the Barbados because of my skill of larval taxonomy, of fish larval taxonomy, and ectoplankton work. And at that point, I say, well, if I'm willing to go to New York, but I want to do a PhD. So that was my leverage. So they gave me a scholarship to do the PhD in New York.
Wow. My next question was going to be, what were some of your biggest challenges as well you faced? But evidently, you've said a few in terms of starting off, getting pregnant in the middle of your course and not being able to carry on with that is clearly at the time a very difficult challenge to face, especially when it's something you're passionate about. And actually quite sad to hear in the sense that there wasn't a way to find a balance for you to continue and carry on, studying and learning. But um, what other kind of like hurdles did you kind of have to overcome along the way as well in your research to really get to where you are today? What are some of the other challenges you've had?
But I think I think the challenges open like different doors. You have to take it as a positive thing because instead of being like into fisheries, which I don't like because I don't like to exploit the ocean.
Yes,
I
yes.
think there's too much industrialization of the ocean. I became an ecologist, and by becoming an ecologist, I'm more in line with my view of the ocean conservation. So that was a good thing. And the other good thing of like being a technician for so long is that I learned different skills. And I think one of the challenge in our field in science and ocean science is it takes time to learn and it takes time to understand it. And everybody is rushed to do something and to become on top of their field, but really it's a journey that matters and how much you can assimilate and learn. But I think today's challenges are um, funding. There is not enough funding for ocean science. When you think about the ocean, it's kind of like important for Earth. But it's called the blue planet, right? This covers more than 71% of our Earth. And it provides a lot for us. We see the ocean as resource, and now we resources because we feed from the ocean, and that's fine. But it's more than that. It's kind of like the source of life. It provides the oxygen we breathe. At least every other breath we take comes from the ocean. And we're talking right now about climate change and industrialization of the ocean, like the blue economy. Blue economy is like moving, the industry of energy in the ocean to the ocean. And we've done that already because we've been drilling the deep ocean for oil and gas. But so the challenge is like at the same time we have this problem where we're in a hurry to find solution, but but we don't know very well the ocean because we put a lot of money into outer space and other things that we think it's important for the economy.
Yes.
But we see the ocean like a living entity that is something we own, not our home. It's our home. So I think we need more funding and we need more young people interested into jobs in the ocean.
It's very interesting actually because I remember around the time of, I think it was just after Brexit, there was obviously the big debate between France and Denmark, Holland, and the UK about the fishing zones and where we
Right.
could fish. And I remember reading a study which said that if the UK protected 30% of its coastline and stopped people fishing there, over 5 years, that area would replenish with livestock and we'd be able to then sustainably fish there. And then they were looking at the research of how um, off-sea wind farms were actually helping re-establish fish stocks because fishermen couldn't go and fish in between those areas, and it was a bizarre thing because obviously to drill down and put the turbines into the ground destroys the area, but actually a lot of these areas apparently they were seeing life and actually habiting of different fish coming into these areas and surviving because they weren't being hunted and being fished by us. And I think linking to what you were saying and understanding there's a lack of understanding from people, especially in the UK, about understanding how to sustainably look after our oceans and how to sustainably live from the seas. And I thought that, you know, again, linking it to climate change and anything like that, once you can learn to fully understand how to live at one with the ocean and with the world and with the natural world, it gives back to you. And we've, as you said, you've given an example, we keep taking. And so it's fascinating because actually, um, until people start waking up and realizing it, they're not going to be able to, we're not going to be able to change really. And so, as you say, getting more people into understanding this topic and understanding the impacts is so important. But considering you've been studying this, been doing it for so long since the early 80s, like what are some of the biggest changes you've seen in your research about our impact on fish stocks and the ocean and the health of the ocean? And then
Yes,
I'll ask you after that, I'll ask you what can we do to fix it. So
yeah, I think that what I've seen is a decline of fish population for sure. Like when I was a kid in West Africa, you could go out at sea and see hundreds of sailfish at the surface, like
really,
in big school and jumping all over the place. And you go out there and you can be on a boat for hours and you don't see anything unless you put a line with a bait and try to catch that fish. Um, so there's definitely a decline of in fish population, decline on the whales, the number of whales you see, and um, if you look at the scientific evidence and the facts, these are things that I've seen, and I can tell that it's very different. But if you also look at satellite data, now we have like 30 years of satellite data. We can see an ocean color through from space uh, through the atmosphere, and what we see is a change of color of the ocean, and that is that doesn't mean that the ocean is not healthy for itself. It's not healthy for us. When we think about the health of the ocean, is our view of the ocean being healthy, which is something like where you have plenty of fishes around, different species, high biodiversity. The biodiversity has decreased as well. So that you can see, and of course, um, the ocean changed from being more blue to being more green. So there's more also pollution, more. It's not green from primary production like in the northern water. It's just green from change of the ecosystem of the ocean from large organisms to like small viruses and bacteria. jellies and things that is not healthy for us. And we see change in the ocean temperature, and that's a grave change because it's really is dear because the ocean has a very high heat capacity. That means that to change the temperature of the bulk of the ocean, it takes a lot of heat to do that. And so that means that the ocean is really the buffer from us putting carbon emission and fossil fuel and emissions in the atmosphere. The ocean grab this CO2 and sequesters the CO2, and also the synergy with the ocean temperature can really help uh, keep a temperature stable. But we at this point, it's not doing that anymore. We see the ocean temperature increase really fast, and that changes also the deep circulation. And we don't see, we see the ocean from the surface, but the deep ocean has a lot of life and biodiversity as well, not as much as the coastal ocean, but it has more abundance. If you look at the biomass, it's more abundant in the deep ocean. And so we're changing things that we don't even know much because we haven't studied them. Um, and then the ice cap are melting. I mean, if you look for evidence, it's not only the things that I see, but you can see it even though you didn't see it when you were little. You can see the evidence. And if the ice cap are melting, it reflects the sunlight, the albedo effect. So now if the ocean is darker, then they capture more of the UV radiation. So sun irradiance is penetrating more into the ocean and creating this acceleration of climate change.
Hmm. And so again, the ocean is basically it seems like an out of balance at the moment as well in terms of that. Like, is the if things keep happening and climate change keeps accelerating and things keep melting, do we have any understanding of what a new balance of the ocean would look like?
It's gonna be chaotic for a while, but in our lifetime, we're not gonna see what in maybe in the future. What we can do, and you say that if you put marine reserve, it just protect the ocean, and the ocean is very grateful. If you protect it, it's gonna be okay. And so we have to absolutely stop the fossil fuel emission. We have to stop using fuel like from oil, and maybe liquid gas could be a transition, but we have to move to all the other energy we have that are more sustainable. We've been saying that for the past 20 years now, but we've not done anything about it. Not only that, but you can see this year fossil fuel emission have increased from last year. It should be going the other way, and we know that.
I mean,
So people
individually, I
like
remember.
you,
Please, please, please.
no, I think you should have like a voice for that
Of
because
course,
I'm a scientist. I know how to write paper and everything, but
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
don't know how to communicate things. I don't know what are the way to change that. So I'm becoming more an advocate now because of the lack of time I see in my lifetime from my granddaughters. But it's really your generation, and it's sad to say that. Why didn't my generation do more? Right? That's sad to say.
No, I understand. I mean, I was just going to say as well. I remember being, let's say, probably 7 or 8 at school and learning about it and starting to learn about how can we use sustainable energies and stuff like that. You know, and that's nearly 23, 22, 20 years ago, and we're still having the same conversations. And that's, I think, a very like eye-opening thing as well, as someone who's just grown up with it and grow. When you're younger, you think, oh well, the technology's there, well surely we're going to put it in place and we're going to fix this. But there's so many so much politics around it as well, and there's so much. I think people are chasing their own wealth and their own prosperity and their own selfish needs as well, that we don't, as a collective, put out to actually try and change as one, and work together. And I think that until we stop feeling divided, until we actually learn to all be one together and actually tackle this in a one way, it's going to be very
Yeah.
difficult to really fix it. And in some ways, it feels like it's only going to be fixed once it gets too far.
Yes, I would not like to see that, but I think it's still like now it's time, and I think have to change the way we see we. I'm not an economist or anything like that, but we have to change the way the economy works. Instead of trying to love to make more money, we don't need that much more money for what we need to share what we have, and we need to protect what gives us life, because the water we drink is important, and most of the water is in the ocean, of course. But if you look at the fresh water that is left, it's in the ice caps, it's in the streams and everything. So we have to put more emphasis on giving value to nature that sustains us rather than things. You know.
100% agree. 100% agree. And it's funny because
And yeah, I think the industry, the oil industry, is extremely powerful. I worked for the past 12 years, 13 years after the Deepwater Horizon spill, studying, oil spills and the effect of them, and trying to change things, but the industry just doesn't want to change. Like the plastic comes from, are we talking about example of what is happening in the ocean? Plastic. I would never seen plastic when I was a kid on the beach. Never, ever. But from the oil comes the plastic. And now, like, my grandmother had a paper store. And now everything goes into plastic bags. I mean, plastic is a big factor, but you have to look at the source. What is the source of plastic? Is hydrocarbons, polymers from the oil industry. So the oil industry said, "Oh, we don't need to recycle anymore. We have biodegradable plastic." But no, don't be fooled, because the plastic doesn't biodegrade from today to tomorrow. It biodegrades in 100 years, not in new generation. You're still creating plastic that is now not recyclable, is biodegradable. So that means that you cannot even recycle it. You just have to toss it. And that's how the oil industry is making more money now.
wow,
Yeah.
that's a very eye-opening thought, because I always think when I get my biodegradable shopping bag with my food, I go, "Oh, this is good," because it will break down. But I think you've just shut down that argument now.
Well, yeah. Take that bag and put it in your yard and leave it there and see, in 10 years from now, if you can see the bag. Still there.
Okay, that's a very good. Okay, before we go on to the free diving, what's one thing do you think we can do at home or consciously as people to, I guess, change our attitudes and make a difference? Is it going to be around plastics and that kind of area, or is there something else we can do? Because again, if I go back to Brexit, which I don't want to, but I will do.
Yes.
One of the big things which the UK population and our relationship with the ocean was that we never liked to eat the local fish to our coastline. And so we would sell all those fish abroad, buy fish from other countries. And so is there an argument as well that we need to learn to live off what we're provided with and stop trying to ship in stuff from all over the world? Or what would you say is the big thing we individually can focus on to try and make small or big difference?
Absolutely. Everything you do individually matters. Shipping industry is another big one, like destroying the environment, the whales with the sound. Like, there's this iconic whale that was uh, struck by a ferry boat in Montreal like a week ago. And we talk about it because the whale was known, but it happens all the time in the ocean. Whale struck by the boat because the sound in the ocean travels so fast you cannot hear it. So there's this sound pollution and the oil pollution as well from the shipping industry. And so, yeah, I think it's a very good point. Like you don't need um, you don't need to have things coming from China or Japan or from Europe when you live in the United States. You can eat your own produce or buy your clothing from locally made, maybe made in California. I mean, at least it's traveling across the country, but it's not traveling across the ocean. So be mindful about that, and also try to. Of course, you can eat fish, but try to eat fish from the bottom of the food chain, like
Interesting.
sardines. A lot of like herring and sardines, which have a lot of um, omega 3. They are better for you. Do not eat like farm salmon, that like farming. Like people think, oh, we're gonna farm the ocean. No, I disagree with the farming um, techniques unless you have to listen unless you have sustainable farming and like fish ponds. I was in Hawaii because I'm part of the ORAP, which is the Ocean Research Advisory Panel for the government of the United States, and we went to Hawaii to listen to the elders and the ancestors, and then the indigenous people from the islands, they knew how to protect the island. They knew how to be sustainable. So they have those fish ponds that were there like 800 years ago and are still there today and feed the local population. This fish pond, we don't need to put food into those ponds. They're vegetarian. They eat the fish are um, eating the algae and the seagrass, and they eat from the sediments, mollusks. So they feed themselves, and if you harvest the fish in a good way, then you can keep that pond forever. And I had that pond for like 800 years. They know the ocean. And why did I create those ponds? They're enclosed. It's not like open to the ocean. They're enclosed, and they have some opening where the water of the ocean can come in and out, and maybe some baby fish can come in. But they're enclosed. They're not like farming in the open ocean. And they did that because when the weather conditions are not good in winter to go out with a canoe, they they can still feed from the ocean in those fish ponds. So there's a lot of indigenous knowledge that now we're trying to include into the scientific knowledge, because knowledge doesn't only come from science but from those that are people of the ocean,
Yeah.
the
Experience.
island, the experience, the uh, local fishermen, not the industry, but the local, like in Um, in England, I think in the UK, you have a lot of fishermen that understand that you don't have to be in the Pacific Ocean. You are an island, and you know more than anyone. You know how you're dependent on the ocean.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's generations of fishermen families who, pass on their knowledge to their sons and daughters, and it's valuable to maintain that knowledge and pass it through. It really is.
Absolutely, yeah. This is knowledge. Yes.
Definitely. Okay, let's get on to the free diving. How did you discover that you could hold your breath for so long?
Um, It's just like I start freediving and understanding more freediving for science, even though I was always in the water and holding my breath, like, and um, playing underwater, but I never knew what freediving was. until I saw like the Big Blue, no, the movie. And I was not attracted by that because I already was in the ocean, so it didn't click to me that I could become a free diver. But it's for science because at some point I was doing an experiment and I saw that oh, if I deploy this instrument with the fish larvae underwater rather than on the surface, it would be better because the larvae would survive. And so I told my husband that had given me like as a gift for my 50th birthday a freediving lesson. Well, I don't know. When I took the lesson, I was like, I don't know if I like that because I don't like people to tell me what to do. I like the part of like, the free being in the ocean. But when I came back from that field work, I say, you know what? I have to get better at freediving because I can use that for science. And actually, right now, we're teaching scientific freediving at the university. And we have developed some PADI certification for scientific freediving. Mhm.
How has your relationship with the ocean changed because of free diving?
Um, it has. I have been, I think, even more connected with the ocean because I realize that the ocean is also my sanctuary. That when you hold your breath, you have to be in the moment. It's like a form of meditation, and it's a place where I love to go. Um, and so also it has taught me that there is no really boundary that physical boundary we put to ourselves or come from our right brain, the smart brain, and the left brain. So you have to the left brain has to talk to the right brain and say, you know what, you can hold your breath, you can do that.
Wow.
So I think it helped me in my work to not have fear of being different and pushing a little bit the boundary and thinking outside of the box. And because every time you decide to go down and hold your breath, it takes some kind of like courage because it's kind of scary. But once you're in, you're fine. But it's always this moment, like before going in, that it's just like you have to control your mind. Sure.
Yes. I think that is the biggest practice for a lot of things in life, isn't it? Controlling your mind and not letting it rush out of control. What do you do? What kind of exercises or things do you do to try and calm your body and mind before you do that?
Well, this is a good. All repressions are good, but that's a good question for everyone, even not for non-free divers, because what I've learned is that to before learning how to hold your breath, you have to learn how to breathe properly. And we do not breathe properly. I know that now, and I think it had helped me staying healthier, not only mentally but physically, to know how to breathe properly. So a lot of these exercise are not only like yoga type of meditation, but really breathing exercises where you are aware of your diaphragm, where you're aware of you know um, your lungs, different part of your lungs, and how you breathe. Like you look at babies and the way baby breathes is just you see the belly going up and down. But when we are a little bit like in everyday um, life, we breathe more with the upper part of our lungs and we breathe shallow. So we have to breathe deep, deep into our belly and deep into where the breath is matters, right? So it's a lot of like breathing exercise, and you know the difference between us and whales, marine mammals, has the life in in the ocean. Life started in the ocean, and then animals came out of the ocean, and then whales are animals that came out of the ocean and decide to
Went back
come
in.
back to the ocean, right? That's why they still breathe air and they don't get the oxygen from the water. And also, there's a lot of constraint from being big and having lungs, no? But that's another, that's
That's another podcast episode on
teaching,
its
I
own.
think, moving fluid. but um, but the fact is that they are more flexible because the thoracic cage is flexible and they don't have to stand up straight. So our thoracic cage gives some structure to our body, but also um, constrain our lungs. So by doing a lot of flexibility in our chest and thoracic cage, by doing exercise like yoga type of exercise, stretching, while you're breathing, while you're holding your breath, or while you empty your lungs, that avoids accident, freediving accidents. Like, um, yeah,
And is there any? There's obviously some very big trends at the moment, getting people to breathe through their nose and out through their mouth. And I know that's
yeah.
part of yoga. Is that a big part as well with you in terms of getting yourself ready? Is trying to, because you breathe through your nose, you can get more oxygen into your blood quicker. It filters things through as well. But is that part of your kind of pre-routine as well, making sure you breathe through your nose and out through your mouth?
Yes, absolutely. We yeah, breathing for the from the nose is essential, and it's also good when you don't want to get sick, because the nose is a filter also. Not only like it increases the amount of oxygen in your blood, but it does filter a lot of like particles. But yeah, one of the big difference of the freediving from before, like from the movie The Big Blue, where you see like um, uh, the freedivers doing a lot of like, like hyperventilation, like what they try to do is get as much oxygen in your lungs, but we learned that is a wrong way to do it, because the air you breathe has mostly oxygen. It's like maybe 1% of CO2, so it's very little CO2. So what you need to do is get used to the CO2, because when you have the urge to breathe is because your level of CO2 increase from moving and holding your breath, and but still you still have a lot of oxygen, so there's no reason why you should be breathing, because you still have a lot of oxygen. So a lot of exercise we do is called hypercapnia exercise, when we get used to keeping a lot of CO2, so breathing very very little, like before submerging. You breathe through your nose, mouth closed, and you breathe very little. Like you breathe even like feeling like you need to breathe more, right? But you have to be gentle with the breathing and breathe very little as possible to keep all the CO2 into your lungs, so that the CO2 triggers the urge to breathe. But if you and that's a good thing, because if you don't have that signal, you may black out, right? So it's good to have the signal, but it's also good to be adapted, because it doesn't hurt. Like, it's not painful. It's just, oh, yes, I have that signal. My diaphragm contracted, so I know my CO2 is increasing, but it's fine. I'm fine. So that's what we do.
Very interesting. I'll ask you one more question on this, and then I know we've got a little bit short of time. So, um, when you're down and you're going down, because I'm right in thinking are you currently the US record holder for the like female record holder for the deepest free dive? Is that correct?
No, it's not
No.
correct, because
Okay.
I I used to in 2017. I did the free immersion. That was the deepest dive for all the female all age at the United States. And I had the record for the pool distance because I do pool
Ah, okay, yes, yes. I've seen videos of
and
that.
and and depth. And the pool helps with the depth because in the pool you could do a lot of hypercapnia exercise. And because in the pool you always have the urge to breathe, but um, when you dive deep, the partial pressure of gas increase, so your partial pressure of oxygen increase. You don't feel the urge to breathe anymore. It's just a matter of equalization. So it's
Interesting.
being adapted to the equalization, the pressure in your ear, and for that you need to have uh, keep some air in your mouth. But anyways, I do this year. I broke 3 world records in full discipline. It was in Belgrade in July, but in the masters division because there is organization that go by age, and masters is after 50. So you have the junior. I think junior is like until 20, and from 20 to 50 is senior. So I have um, world record in masters in the
Fantastic.
yeah.
Look at you. Well done. And you started it, so many people as well, I know, are scared of starting stuff and following their passions too late in life. They go, I'm too old to do this. And you started it so late as well, which is amazing because it's so inspiring because you're providing evidence to people that they can do what they want to do no matter their age. And I find that so interesting.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. And that's what freediving taught me that there's no, I like to compete, but in freediving, like in everything, you should only compete against yourself. And actually, in freediving, you can only compete against yourself because it takes so much preparation. And that's what the similarity with the science. Science is really rewarding, but it does take time and dedication. And everything you do takes time and dedication. Look what you do. It takes your time. Everything takes time, but the more you do it, the better you get to be, and it's rewarding.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, I'll go on to some final, just a few more personal questions, and then we'll end it there. So, what does fulfillment mean to you?
The what? Sorry.
Fulfillment.
Of
Fulfillment.
fulfillment. I think fulfillment is just being true to yourself, and also feeling that I've served others. I've challenged myself. I did my best, and it doesn't mean that I succeed all the time, but I can get up and start again. So, and that's fulfilling and understanding my part in nature. And I think I found it. I think I'm following my heart, and that is fulfilling. I can go to bed and sleep peacefully.
Fantastic. And what does success mean to you?
Well, success, you put some a limit to the success. I mean, success is going through steps, I guess, and you can be successful in something that you have a goal for. My goals are right now are more into the ocean conservation. So um, I think the success for me is when I see things change, and I'm so success when I see a student that I inspire and that is following the path and having their own path in the science and the conservation of the ocean. So these are success measures. In science, we measure success by how many articles did you write, how high impact they are, and everything. So you always have different bars of success, but personal success are different.
I love that. And I agree. What are some of the keys to succeeding and following your dreams?
I think it's just um I think it's following your intuition again, like and to do that, I think it takes a lot of being outdoors and forget about the noise around you and be true to yourself again, and also commit and never give up. If you commit to something, don't give up. There's gonna be like a wave of um, um, success and unsuccessful things, and you have to navigate through this. Life is not perfect, but really have no fear. There isn't. Don't put limit to yourself, and yeah, you can get up and try again if you don't succeed right away. Like my world record, and when I did the world record, I didn't even try. I didn't even know I was doing a world record. So you have to go without having too much expectation, but having an ambition. Ambition is good. Ambition is what you want for yourself, right? It's not competing. So, but you know, you can take ambition as in a bad way, like having like a big ego, but but as far as you serve other with your passion and your ambition, I think it's following your passion, follow your heart, um, and have no fear. And also, you cannot look too much in the future. It's just step by step, like little thing, like those plastic bag, or ordering things from across the world, buy locally, like little steps. But yeah, be serious in what you like. It takes some effort. It doesn't happen from one day to the other. So be patient.
Yeah. It's like you said earlier, learn to love the journey as well.
Yes.
Okay, final question. You said, I think you did say you had two granddaughters.
Yes.
What would be your one lesson you'd like to teach them about life?
I think mm, for them, I, I wanted to teach them that trust is important, um, and love nature as much as possible, and be outdoors as much as possible. I want to teach my grandkids to be curious, to stay open minded, and yeah, to be around nature and to just be a kid,
Yes.
be curious. Kids are
Yes.
curious, right?
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
like little sponges.
Exactly. And it's interesting. I had a conversation with a Cambridge professor called Dr. Mark Bloomfield. He said the number one lesson as adults we need to remember is to continue to learn to play. As a child, you play and failure isn't a problem. But as we get older, failure gets bigger problem in our heads and people forget about playing. And if we can keep playing and keep innovating and trying to learn and accept failure as growth, then we'll be happy and we'll get a lot further than we think.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Yeah, you have to keep being a little kid because they have their own intuition. They know what is fun and what is, interesting, like looking at nature and be passionate about it.
Exactly. Well, Claire, look, thank you so much for your time. It's been fascinating. I could probably talk to you for about 3 or 4 hours because I've got so many more questions I'd throw at you, but we'll keep this to this time now. But I really appreciate your time and also explaining so well and in detail about everything you do in your studies and about freediving. It's been fascinating for me. I've really loved it. You are Outlaw number 26, and thank you so much.
Outlaw numbers 26.
26.
Thank you very much. I'm very grateful to be here, and it's an honor to meet you.
Thank you, Claire. Lovely to meet you too. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to the Valley of Outlaws podcast. If you enjoyed it, please do share it with friends and family, and please see all of our news across our socials.